Welcome into the San Francisco 49ers Dynasty review, talking about the 49ers. And we were talking about President's Day and that holiday. And one of the best things I've heard, I think like last year or something, was how we should move the Super Bowl back one more week, add an extra bye week for every team, move the Super Bowl gets pushed back a week. And then the Monday after the Super Bowl is a holiday and everyone gets the day off. It's like the perfect teams get 2 bye weeks. I don't know how it messes with fantasy and stuff, but I don't know. What do you think of that idea, Brian? Does it sound good?
Yeah, I think the day after Super Bowl should be a national holiday just because no one wants to go to work. I think I heard, it might have been like last year, and it's probably still true, that it's like the most, the day where the most people call out sick, like in the entire country or something like that. Like
I heard that too.
Yeah, which is totally like, it makes sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Super Bowl is a holiday. Like, people celebrate it that don't even watch football. Like, that's kind of like, it's become a holiday. So, anyways, we are talking about the 49ers. Unfortunately, they lost the Super Bowl. Was kind of hoping they won it, but they were right there. Almost had it. 12-5, had a really good year. They were looking kind of unstoppable until they had like their 3-game losing streak, and then they got it back together, and then just didn't look. They didn't look right in the playoffs, and it was one of the reasons why I thought the Chiefs were going to win, was just because they kind of got lucky against the Packers, they kind of got lucky against the Lions, and you don't really get lucky against Mahomes. Like, you got to play perfect. So unfortunately, they lost, but I think a lot to look forward to with this team. They still have their young players locked up. They're not paying their quarterback a bunch of money yet, which is always the key. They have their 21st in cap space, so they don't have a bunch of cap space, but they do have 11 draft picks, so including 4 in the top 3 rounds, which is great for them. They're going to reload and come right back. So I guess we could just, in terms of free agents, no one big. Sam Darnold, Juwan Jennings, who could have maybe won the Super Bowl MVP if they won. Maybe it was between him and CMC, that's for sure. But no one huge in terms of fantasy. So we'll just jump in with Brock Purdy. And you mentioned it. He was he fell 4 spots to QB 15, but that's because 3 quarterbacks got added ahead of him. So the rookies are in and keep trade cut. Where are you at with Brock Purdy? Just a nice QB2 for Superflex, and is that about it? Like, can he get higher than what he is, or in terms of like his production, or is kind of just a nice QB2 is what he's going to be?
Yeah, I think kind of what we learned about Brock Purdy this year is, like, even if he's your QB1, like, it's not ideal, but he's probably he's definitely like one of the best QB2s in general, like, if not the best, like I'd still kind of like slot him in right around, that QB12 range. It's kind of funny, like, when we talk about this, right? Because it's like, why is there 15 QB1s kind of a thing, like,
mm-hmm.
And like, no, I do agree. Like, I'm fine with him being, I'm happy if he's my QB2, just given like where you probably got him. And I think that's kind of the lesson with Purdy in general that we can take away from it. I know you like to say, like, yeah, always grab starting quarterbacks, like, no matter who they are, even if they are literally the last guy picked in that draft, because they could turn into this, But I don't think he's necessarily worth trading for, because I feel like the manager is going to want quite a bit, and rightly so, for him.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like super confident about like his future, like, more than 2 years out. But I think he's definitely like proved that he's here to stay, and he's in the perfect system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in a good system. He got him to the Super Bowl. I thought he played all right. Like, he wasn't amazing, but he made some of the throws, like he could have potentially made the throw if he had a little bit more time on a couple of them. Brock Purdy, if we're just looking at this last year, he was a QB1. He was QB6 on the year. He averaged 19.2 points a game. I think that was 6th in points per game for guys who played majority of the game. So, he was a QB1. Now, if you look at his number, 19.2 points per game, I believe in 4-point that is. You go back to 2022, no, but back to a normal quarterback year, which was any year from like 2021 and down, 19.2 is usually closer to like the QB 10 to 12. So it's been a down year. Injuries last year, down year for quarterbacks in 2022. So could that be the norm as well? Like our defense is adjusting to quarterbacks and how they're playing, and that limits, offense has been down. So it could be the norm where 19.2 points is, the QB6, but I would assume it's going to go back closer to what it was the decade before. So yeah, if I play in like a 10-team league, I want someone else as my QB. I want upside for my QB2. I want Kyler, who can put up like a crooked number. I want Jaden Daniels, the rookie coming out, who can possibly put up a crooked number. Anthony Richardson, these guys that can put up huge numbers. Purdy, to do that, is going to need to throw 4 touchdowns, and that's just not going to happen a lot. So, yeah, fine QB2. He's like a safe QB2, especially in any 12-team and beyond. 10-team, I would potentially try to upgrade my QB2 if he was my QB2. But there's not many of those is the problem. Like, he's in that group with like Tua, Jared Goff, like these type of players, maybe even Trevor Lawrence. I think Trevor Lawrence has more upside, obviously, but all these guys are just like, they're fine QB2s, probably not huge difference makers in 10-team leagues. So, and yeah, I mean, Sam Darnold had value as long as he's on the Niners. So if he comes back, I still think he has some value, just because we know what quarterbacks do in this system. I guess whoever's the QB2 for this team has value. That's basically how we should talk about Sam Darnold, is whoever the QB2 is for the Niners probably should be rostered. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I'd say so, because I kind of like where you've been going with this, like the last several weeks, where it's like, yeah, anyone stepping into this system definitely has some value as a starter for sure. Like Purdy gets injured again, like he did, back in 2022, and Darnold he's on the roster because he's capable. Like obviously he's not gonna be a star or anything like that. We've seen enough from him to know that. But you know what? Maybe just maybe he can get it done, kind of a thing.
Niners like him, like all the way back to when he was drafted. They liked him, so that's why he was on this team. But we'll see where he lands. The running backs, again, kind of in the situation where the quarterbacks are. Obviously, McCaffrey's awesome. He's going to be awesome for another year. He's just one of those, like, if you still have him from when you drafted him, you just kind of ride him out until he dies, I should say. Hopefully you don't die, but
or him.
Hopefully he doesn't die. I mean, his fantasy value dying. He'll be 28. It'll be his year 28 season. Seen plenty of running backs put up really good numbers at age 28. So, and he's just the type of player that he could go till 30. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe not like running back 1, but still very valuable. Anything you want to say about McCaffrey that we don't already know?
No, I think like he's kind of slotted right where he belongs. The 3 guys in front of him are like, honestly, I think Jahmyr Gibbs is kind of even questionable, but like him in that top 5, like he's in the proper company. Like the other guys are basically ahead of him or right around him because of their age, but he is by far and away the best player in fantasy, outside of quarterbacks and stuff. But I mean, and even that's questionable, so just he's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically like a QB 12 or maybe even higher. Obviously this last year, but on a normal year, if you think normal quarterback scoring, he's probably as good as like a QB 2. So, he's awesome. Elijah Mitchell, again, it's just whoever's the backup for this team has value because they back up McCaffrey. Like, is that Elijah Mitchell? I mean, I would potentially throw all three of these guys, Mitchell, Mason, Tyrion Davis-Price, that's all they have right now. I'd probably throw all of them, all three, even Tyrion Davis-Price on my bench just to see, like, does he take over the running back too? Probably not, but I'll hold him for now until I know that. So, yeah, all of them have value. They're not going to do anything unless, maybe they start incorporating someone in a little bit more, but you basically need an injury for something to happen. So anything on those guys? Do you have a preference on who's the RB2?
I think Elijah Mitchell, like we've seen, San Fran, like trust him when he's been healthy, but, he has dealt with injuries of his own. Even going back to his rookie year, but even in his rookie campaign, like he had over 200 rush attempts in 11 games. Obviously that was before McCaffrey. So, but McCaffrey is one of those dudes like that you want to handcuff him, especially if you have him. Honestly, I don't mind dropping 2 roster spots on the San Francisco running back or, lead RB, but you got to make that choice for yourself, who you think that is, which I think is basically the gist of the question. So I'd go with Elijah Mitchell for sure.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if they drafted someone in the 4th round, because that's what they do every year. So, easy. Running backs are easy there. Wide receivers, we have Deebo Samuel, who had a bounce back here. I've always liked Deebo Samuel. Didn't buy into, because if you just went and looked at the numbers, didn't buy into like, oh, he's not going to get any carries because McCaffrey's here now. And it's like, no, go back and look at even when McCaffrey came, Deebo was still basically getting the same amount of carries. Nothing changed for him. So that's just so powerful. Like, the guy's going to touch the ball twice on the ground, and he's going to average, he's averaged over 6 yards a carry, which is impressive because a lot of times he lines up as a running back and does it. It's not like jet sweep stuff, but he also gets those. So you just imagine, all right, I'm going to get, I'm going to get an extra 200 to 300 yards on the ground from Deebo. Add that to whatever wide receiver, receiving total you're going to get, plus what he gets as touchdowns. So I really like Deebo. He's getting up there in age for sure. He's the Keep Trade Cut has him as the wide receiver 30. That's with some rookies in there. 1, 2, 3, 5 rookies that just got put in. So closer to like wide receiver 25. Is that fair for Deebo, or do you think he should be higher, lower?
I think he should be higher, honestly. Like, I'm really surprised to see Deebo at 30 and Aiyuk at 11. I just think and I get it, there's a couple years difference in there, but age wise, but it's I think that's way too far apart. Deebo, he obviously, like you said, bounced back this year. The previous year, 2022, was probably a little bit more injury related than anything. I don't think Aiyuk is going to run away with the job. Partially because he hasn't, I just think that Deebo is one of those special sort of players, and he might not he might not be the dude that week, kind of, but I feel like this team, going into this season, we kind of I definitely thought anyways, where it's all right, so Aiyuk, Kittle, Samuel, CMC, it's there's too many guys here. How are we going to support them all? And I mean, we saw how it happened, just that boom potential is there with all of these players, and you might not get it right every week, but I think they're all definitely there's no chance you're benching any of them at any point. So yeah, Deebo's he's discounted for his age, and I think you should totally try and trade for him if that's the way he's looked at. Obviously a little bit harder now that he just finished as wide receiver 12, but he's awesome.
No, I think it's a good point by you. The discrepancy between Aiyuk and Deebo doesn't make that big of a gap. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. They're essentially 2 years apart. Deebo turned 28 20 days ago. Brandon Aiyuk turns 26 in 20 days. So essentially 2 years apart. Deebo has had 2 top 12 seasons, including being wide receiver 2 in 2021 in half PPR, wide receiver 12 last year. So Aiyuk's outscored him in points per game once in the 4 years that they've been in the league together. So that was in 2022, and it was by 0.3 points. And that was like a bad year for Debo. So even this last year, Debo had more points per game, and he finished higher than Aiyuk. And, there's like one or two of those games where one of them he was like a decoy, and another one he left like instantly. So, I just think he's really, really good. I think he's like potentially the best player on the team or on the field whenever they play. And he's going to be there. We don't know about Aiyuk. It's important to talk about. I think he's on his 5th year from being a first-round rookie, but there's him posting stuff, or his brother or cousin posting stuff like saying he wants out of San Francisco. So like, he's going to be in a situation where he's probably going to want a contract, and maybe the 49ers don't want to give it to him. Maybe they do. I don't know. But if they don't, like, he could not be on this team, and that makes Debo more popular, more valuable. So do you think Aiyuk being at 11, what would you say, 11 or 13?
Yeah, 11.
So do you think are you saying that's too high for Aiyuk, or are you just saying Debo's too low?
Kind of a little bit of both. Like, I don't think Aiyuk is would move much further down, like he's kind of in, like, it's not exactly grouped this way, but he is like in that giant tier from 11 to 20 basically. Of course, yeah, like I guess I would have to count the rookies and all that stuff to pick it all out, but yeah, I just think that they're just too far apart where I don't really see their value as that different. I know we've kind of talked about this quite a bit. Maybe don't look at Dynasty in terms of 5 years from now or anything, look at it in a 2-year window. Just because things change so quickly in the NFL. It's I don't know how you could predict that, I just think that he's a little too high, but also Debo's a little too low. It's hard to make the case for Aiyuk being too high, just given what he's done and who's underneath him, but there's definitely, I think he's a really good, maybe tier down type of player, and then see if you can get Debo plus, for Aiyuk. It's a little bit weird because we're on the same team, but if you could pull that off, I think that's great. It might not be that sneaky though.
You mentioned it are hard to argue against him being wide receiver 11. And I think there's actually an argument there. It's all right, he's 4 years in. He had his best year last year, 1,300 yards, 75 catches, 7 touchdowns. Can we see it getting that much better for Aiyuk? Now, is it just San Francisco that uses him as kind of the deep threat guy, not a heavy pass catching volume guy, but more of just a down the field guy, or is that just who he is? That's the big question. Because if that's just who he is, well, we just saw his best season probably he's ever going to have, or very close to it. And he was wide receiver 14 in points per game. So still really good, but that's not wide receiver 11, So I guess the argument is on the other side, it's if he goes to another team, they'll use him more volume, give him more volume and stuff, right? Yeah, of course he can catch 3 more touchdowns. I'm not trying to say that, but what we've seen from Aiyuk is essentially a mid-70s catch guy, and anywhere from 1,000 plus yards. It's hard to repeat that type of stuff. 1,300 yards on just 75 catches. That's not common to do. So I think there's an argument to be made that he is too high, and maybe tier down, get out of him now. It's not like a rookie doing this or a second-year guy. He's going into his 5th year. So, and he could be on a team where he's not in this amazing system, and that could hurt him too. Maybe he's better in this system than he is as a wide receiver 1 for the Panthers. So
yeah, I would say so, and that's partially probably why you did see that efficiency this year, is because look at the other 3 guys on the field around him. It's how do you cover this team? It's really hard to do, and so and Purdy's good at getting these guys the ball. Like he's good at finding the open guy, you know, like he goes through his reads well and everything. And yeah, I don't really see Aiyuk getting a whole lot better, but obviously an extremely valuable asset just in general. But yeah, no, I would not mind at all like tearing down from him if that's how it's viewed. And yeah, picking up something like get a second and DJ Moore for Aiyuk or something. That's probably pretty doable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, like if you expect him to be on the 49ers next year, like this was literally, I don't see them using him differently. And he was healthy the entire year. I think he missed a game. And, you know, this was like the peak of what you're going to see essentially. So, which is really good. But yeah, it's an interesting conversation for sure to be had because he could just become a 100 catch guy if another team decides this is how we're going to use you.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned him and like Debo was like better than him this year, but I only see like a 2-point difference, and so I mean, not that it's not true, but they were essentially like the same guy, just difference in how they scored, I guess. With Debo a little like his work on the ground and Aiyuk more efficient through the air.
Yeah, 2-point difference, but 1 point per game. Debo missed one extra game, so
true.
But it was more to the point of you saying like they shouldn't be 19 spots apart.
Right.
It was more to that. So, and then, you know, guys, I always like to take stabs at young receivers in the mid round. Like Ronnie Bell and Danny Gray were two guys I've had on my dynasty teams just because I'm like, oh, like San Francisco, they know offense. They're a good offense. You know, the Los Angeles Rams, they're a good offense. The Miami Dolphins, like they're a good offense. They know how to find guys. So I'm just gonna like throw those guys on my bench and see if they're anything. But Ronnie Bell in deeper leagues, I would hold on to. Danny Gray hasn't done anything in 2 years. Ronnie Bell's interesting. I'd potentially hold on to him if you have a deeper league, but that's again, just tying myself to good offenses. So I don't know if there's anything else to say about any receiver, unless you want to talk about anyone else here. Willie Snead still in the league somehow. Dude's been in the league forever. Only 2015. I was thinking like 2012, but yeah, he's been in the league forever. And then Kittle, dude's been top 5 tight end in points per game every year since 2018. He just keeps doing it. We were worried about, I thought Kittle and Aiyuk were going to be the two guys that would maybe suffer the most. I did not expect Kittle to get 1,000 yards this year, which is crazy. I thought if he was going to be relevant, he was going to catch 11 touchdowns like he did last year. But nope, he had 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns. I don't know. He's 30 years old. Worried about Kittle, or you think he's just going to be a top 5 tight end once again?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to state too, like him being a top 5 tight end is like, he is one of those guys that is like a true difference maker at the tight end position. Like he's not consistent like Kelsey or Mark Andrews when they're playing like the way they do, but he does have that potential to give you the 20, 30 point games, like I don't think we saw a 30-point game this year, but I think we saw a couple last year. They might have even been like a 40-point game thrown in there. So yeah, he is like a truly elite player. It's just not going to be every week, which can be a little frustrating. Like he can kind of hurt you, but he can single-handedly give you that huge edge at tight end. And so, yeah, no, I think you kind of just hold on to him and ride it out a little bit. Like he is going to be, it looks like he'll be right around 31 by the time the next season starts, but it's kind of crazy to see like him in the same category as like David Njoku and Jake Ferguson and Michael Mayer and Komet. Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense,
Ferguson especially.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Like, but I was gonna say I'd argue the other two also, but obviously that's age and whatever. We don't have to get into that. But yeah, no, I don't necessarily disagree with the guys above him. But it's just, yeah, like he is elite for sure.
Yeah. Important to know, I didn't put it in our show sheet, but they do have a potential out with him this year, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. So he's owed a lot of money. It'd still be a pretty big cap hit if they cut him. I don't see them cutting. He's too important to not just their passing game, but everything he does in the run game and the blocking and everything. Like you saw him against the Lions, he knocked down Aiden Hutchinson, and the dude's just like, you can make an argument that he is the best tight end in the NFL if you encompass blocking, which people are going to freak out. It's like, who the hell is watching blocking every play? Like, shut up if you think you are, because you're not,
Yeah.
So, like, leave it to the people that do that, and or do it yourself. But anyways, we don't have to get into that, I guess. But if you think Kittle is old, over the hill, they're going to cut him. Cameron Latu is interesting just because he was a third-round pick from them. So I assume this team knows what to look for with a tight end because they've had Kittle, and the tight end is just so important to their system, the Miami system, just in terms of the blocking, like I said. So if you do think Kittle's getting old, over the hill, they're going to cut him, then you better throw Cameron Latu on your bench because he could be the replacement for Kittle. So
yeah, but the dude didn't. I mean, not that obviously it was his rookie year, but it's like he didn't play a single snap. So
he might have been hurt. I don't know, but also that system's just really hard to pick up for tight ends because there's just so much involved in it. That's why Mike Gesicki did nothing with the Dolphins when McDaniel took over. It's because he couldn't learn the system essentially.
So he was on IR.
Yeah, he was on IR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the entire preseason game to the Chargers, actually, where he got hurt. So that means he didn't practice with the team the whole time either, right? So he didn't learn anything.
He could be at practice, at practice. I don't know if he could be participating, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's much more likely that Kittle's there than Aiyuk this year. Like me and Dad were talking yesterday about we were trying to because we saw the Amon-Ra St. Brown contract possibilities where he might be getting $25 million a year, and so we were kind of like, well, who are? Because I was like, wow, that's a lot of money, and I was like, who's? And it said he was going to be the fifth or tied for the fifth highest paid wide receiver, and so we were kind of like, oh, who do you think's getting more money? And I think we got 3 out of the 4 that'd be in front of him. It was Tyreek and Devontae Adams, older guys who have earned it, not to say anything about who's earned what, but yeah, I was actually really surprised Dad got Devo, how much money they're paying him. And, you get it kind of a thing. And it's I don't know how you pay all of these guys, especially
the quarterback.
Well, yeah, but I think
that's the big one.
They've kind of said that they want to. Obviously, they're not going to give him that kind of contract, he's not going to get a superstar quarterback contract, but they definitely should pay him, lock him up for a few more years. Talking about Purdy, obviously,
but they're not going to. Well, one thing is they're not going to have to pay him, even if they sign him now. They can basically say that's going to kick in 2 years.
Yeah.
And he probably does get a top, because how quarterbacks are paid is whoever's the next up gets the most money. That's basically how it's. Daniel Jones, look how much he got. Geno Smith, so if they do pay him, he's probably going to be a top 5 quarterback. But that's how they can afford all these guys. They don't. That's why it's so valuable, rookie quarterbacks. That's why the Bears are going to take Caleb Williams. It's all right, we don't have to pay a quarterback for 5 years. We can stack our team.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, but I just don't see them giving Aiyuk probably what he wants. I'd say he would want at least what Debo got, and it's I just don't see that. Not because of it's not anything to do with his talent or anything, but it's just I don't know if the team is going to be able to. Maybe, I don't know. I'm just speculating.
I think if they do something, they'll say all right, you're basically on this team for 2 years. We're going to make a push with not paying Brock Purdy with this team, Debo for a couple more years, Kittle for a year or 2 more, McCaffrey for a year or 2. Just think about their team in general. It's Kittle's 30 years old, McCaffrey's 28, Debo's 28. You have a rookie quarterback, go for it now, and Aiyuk's a big part of that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they do bring him back, and it's some kind of contract where they can kind of get out of it in a couple years and, maybe go into full rebuild after that. So who knows? Who knows? That's it, I think, for the 49ers, right? Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
Just on to the last team, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think we started this when the season was still happening, the regular season. So it's just kind of crazy that it takes that long. But we will be back with the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs in the next video. We'll catch you guys then.